California, Ms. Solis.
Thank you. I've been listening attentively to many of your statements regarding different investments that you all have made. And I want to particularly commend BP, Mr. Malone, because I had an opportunity on a visit with this select committee. We visited the Chancellor Merkel and some business folks out there, and had a very extensive discussion with your representative about solar panels and investments here in the United States and collaboratives that you have with universities. And it seems to me that you made an investment a long time ago, maybe a decade ago, that you were going to address this issue of green gases and how CO2 is affecting our entire environment. I fail to understand why your other colleagues haven't been able to maybe come up to speed in that same vein. And I wonder, you know, what led you then to make those kinds of decisions, to make those investments, because you are a global market. Obviously, your tentacles are everywhere, but especially in the EU. And because there are dramatic changes occurring there with governments, I think that has, in my opinion, given you the impetus to do more. So if you could just touch on that, because what I'm trying to sense here is that we're not doing enough to create an incentive so that your other colleagues would do the same. But I see that happening in Europe. Tell me what you see.
Well, just a couple of comments. Yes, early on, my company, although the science was incomplete, we made the policy decision that we could not take the risk with global warming while we're waiting for science to settle, and that was our decision 7 years ago. What we've been asking...
Would you put a price on that risk? At that time, was there a risk factor there?
No.
For you to fail?
No.
No. Okay.
No. But we knew that we were in the carbon business, and we knew that our business emits greenhouse gases, and that we needed to start, and we implemented a number of things that have been referenced here internally. I think the important thing, though, there is a missing link now. We're 7 years down the road, and we still don't have any way to price and market carbon in this country. So even though you can do some things internally, we're now faced with these refineries we're talking about with greenhouse gas emission increases of CO2, and if you can't sequester it, there's no market mechanism for us to be able to move forward. So even 7 years later, we do have the inability to have acted on a piece of legislation, and we're hoping to be a part of that.
Okay, one of my other concerns is that most of you here talked about the barriers that federal government or maybe even local government have put up, roadblocks for you to develop those current leases that you have. Could you tell me specifically why you have not been able to develop those leases that you currently have that have about 80% of the oil, the U.S. oil, that is available? And I'll go to Mr. Simon.
I don't know of any that we're not developing. Those that we already have access to, developing as rapid a fashion as we can.
Go on to the next.
The leases are generally a 10-year time horizon, and during that period of time, we're continuously evaluating where we can best use our technology and science to develop those leases. Sometimes 10 years isn't long because of the tremendous capital expenditure that is necessary. For example, in the Gulf of Mexico, it's easily $1 billion now for a major deep water project in just one lease.
But then how do you explain your record profits that are well over $1 billion?
Well, the profits
can't be redirected in some way or apportioned.
The profits are cumulative around the world, but in the case of, let's say, the Gulf of Mexico, we're limited by the amount of manpower that we have. We don't have the kind of human resource that can do all of the leases simultaneously, and so we do.
So the obstacle isn't from the federal government. It's a market obstacle. That's your obstacle.
The federal government's obstacle has been to prohibit the granting of leases in the Outer Continental Shelf more broadly. Had we had the confidence that we could do more leasing, we would be scaling up our operations to go after more leases.
I'm not sure whether there's a misunderstanding here, but certainly all the leases that we have, that we've spent money on with the government, we are working on and trying to develop. And we obviously, we work the biggest prospects. I mean, once you get a lease, then you do some work on it, you do some seismic work, you do some drilling, and you see which ones are the best to develop, and we develop them. after a period
But there's different stages of that development.
Yeah, but after a period
So
of time.
not all of them are, the spigot isn't open on all of them, is what I'm trying to get at.
If we don't do something, we have to return them back to the government. So we're working on the leases. You asked another question about so many years ago. 20 years ago, Chevron started developing geothermal energy in California. Today, Chevron is the largest geothermal energy company in the world. It's still a relatively small in the scale of the world's energy business, but it's 1,200 megawatts of power. So I think we've been doing this for many, many years.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask
It makes a difference.
if we could get from the witnesses a listing of those current leases and at what stage they're at, so I have a better understanding of what is in existence, what's being utilized, and what isn't.
Okay, the gentlelady has propounded that request with the witnesses at the table. Be willing
Short
to...
example, when leased acreage has become available, for example, 2 Gulf of Mexico deep water lease rounds last fall, a recent Chukchi Sea lease round off Alaska, ConocoPhillips has been high bidder on $1 billion for those leases. So we are starved for access. Access really is the issue.
Right, well, we'd ask for that